before we move in, add your voice below. What, in your view, was the single biggest factor in Canelo Alvarez's loss to Terence Crawford? Strategy, corner advice, combinations, or something else entirely? Drop a comment. Subscribe for more in-depth boxing analysis, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next breakdown on super fights, pound-for-pound rankings, and the future of Mexican boxing. Canelo Alvarez's defeat to Terence Crawford did more than end a title defense. It rattled assumptions about size, power, and the kind of game plan needed to win at the highest level. On a night in Las Vegas built for spectacle, the undisputed super middleweight champion from Guadalajara met an opponent who dared to come up 2 divisions and control a fight that was supposed to be defined by physicality. The result set off a hurricane of post-fight opinions from fans, trainers, and former champions. Few were as direct or as detailed as Juan Manuel Marquez. Marquez, a multi-division world champion and one of the finest counterpunchers of his era, does not speak in cliches. He breaks down fights with the same precision he used to puncture timing and distance in the ring. In a conversation with his peer Dutso, he stripped away the noise and focused on fundamentals. Canelo Alvarez lacked strategy. He lacked a corner, so to speak. Marquez said he needed a little more guidance, something like, don't just throw power shots, throw combinations. Crawford is hitting you, counterpunch too. Canelo counterattacks well. So in that sense, he needed a bit more strategy, a proper game plan. Maybe they were too confident that weight would be a deciding factor, that power punches alone would do the job, but the strategy was lacking. Those words go to the heart of what made Crawford's performance so effective. The American didn't just survive Canelo's power. He dismantled the framework that usually delivers it. From the opening rounds, Crawford disrupted rhythm with feints and a piston jab, changed looks by switching stances, and kept the fight at a range that minimized exchanges on Canelo's terms. When Alvarez tried to set his feet, Crawford slid off the line. When he sought to trap Crawford along the ropes, Crawford pivoted out or tied him up and reset. Instead of brawl, the fight turned into a clinic in ring generalship. The combinations matter. Marquez's critique, Canelo lacked combinations, was on display for anyone tracking sequences rather than single moments. At his best, Alvarez gets inside behind a jab or upper body movement, shifts angles, and lets go in 3 and 4 punch flows. Double jab, right to the body, left hook upstairs, or jab, right uppercut, left hook to the liver. Against Crawford, those patterns never formed consistently. Canelo's offense too often devolved into isolated power shots launched from outside optimal range. Big hooks and looping rights can end fights when they're set up. Without a jab invested early and a body attack piled up to slow the legs, those shots become easier to read. This is where the corner's voice becomes decisive. Great teams recognize when Plan A is getting blunted and call for a pivot. Watch back the mid-rounds. The fight begged for a doubling the jab, for Canelo to cut the ring with his feet rather than chase with his hands, for him to go downstairs in volume to bring Crawford's guard down, more head movement on entry, more half steps to close distance without smothering his own work. Marquez wasn't calling for miracles. He was calling for a coach's checklist. He didn't get from Team Canelo, and the Guadalajara star couldn't invent on the fly against a master. Crawford's feints froze him. His jab out-touched him. His counters punished him. The size myth meets switch hitting reality. A key narrative before the fight was a weight jump. Crawford coming up 2 divisions to 168 pounds. Many assumed physics would carry the night. Canelo's density, his durability, his body punching. Marquez's observation that Team Canelo may have been too confident that weight would be a deciding factor reads now like a pre-fight warning we all missed. Crawford neutralized the weight gap by taking away exchanges altogether, forcing a speed and timing fight rather than a power fight. His switch hitting, going orthodox to southpaw and back, kept Canelo guessing about the jab lane and the angle of the backhand. His feet weren't busy for show. They were efficient, never wasted, always set to punch or to punish overreaches. If you charted the bout with the kind of CompuBox style numbers that fans love to debate, the contours would tell the same story. Crawford's jab touched early and often. Canelo's landed in spots but never built pressure. Crawford's power shots arrived in 2s and 3s. Canelo's fell one at a time. body punches from a Mexican did land, but not in the sustained clusters that typically wield an opponent's legs by rounds 8 through 10. The longer the fight went, the calmer Crawford looked, and the more Canelo's output flattened into single swings. That is a strategy issue, not a courage issue. Alvarez never stopped trying. He simply never changed what he was trying. Counterpunching, the weapon that never came. It is a strange thing to say about a fighter as accomplished as Alvarez, but one of his most reliable weapons when underused, the counter right hand. Crawford hit him. Marquez's advice, Crawford is hitting you. Counterpunch 2 is the logic of boxing itself. When an opponent extends, counters are easier to land. Canelo has built entire highlights off slip and rip sequences. A roll under a hook followed by a right to the ribs, a shoulder roll absorbing a jab, and firing back a right cross. Against Crawford, those reads never appeared often enough to change the tempo. Part of that is Crawford's craft. He rarely committed lazily. Part of it, again, comes back to the corner. Each minute between rounds is a chance to identify patterns. Crawford's exit to the right, the tell before his rear uppercut, the beat after his double jab. If you can't pick up those cues, a fight like this becomes a 12-round chase. The corner's responsibility. Coaches at this level do more than wrap hands. They calm nerves, diagnose problems, and deliver adjustments the fighter can execute. Marquez's line, he lacked a corner, was not an insult for the sake of it. It was a professional noting a deficit of instruction. Whether that was a failure to read Crawford's game in real time or an overinvestment in the one-shot-will-turn-it mentality, the effect was the same. Alvarez walked back to the ring with the same toolkit round after round, while Crawford expanded his. Reynoso and Alvarez have a partnership that has produced a Hall of Fame career. Nights like these are the ones that test bonds. The question is not whether they stay together. The question is what they choose to change. Better feinting on the way in. More layered entries built off the job. A plan to cut the ring without crossing feet. A willingness to trust three-punch combinations even when the first two miss, because sometimos the tier scores. And, perhaps most importantly, a preferred plan that assumes you will need a plan B by round 4. What is next for Canelo Alvarez? After a loss of this magnitude, the next steps matter as much as any punched round. Does Alvarez push for a rematch with Crawford, banking on size and adjustments to turn the result? Does he take a tune-up to rebuild rhythm and confidence? Does he reassess his training camp timeline, sparring partners, and the kinds of looks he needs to master switch hitters? The calendar matters. So does agent Mirage. Canelo is a veteran of long camps and many championship rounds. Rest Canelo, so can choosing the right challenge at the right time. There is also the business layer. Undisputed super middleweight belts, sanctioning bodies, mandatories lining up, and the appetite for another mega event in Las Vegas. Fans will argue about pound-for-pound lists and the legacy column. What should be clear is that one loss to an all-time talent at the peak of his powers does not erase a career. But if Alvarez wants the aura back, he will need to show that he can make real tactical adjustments against elite opposition. That is what the great ones do after a bad night. Crawford esse masterpiece. It is easy, in the critique of the loser, to understand the brilliance of the winner. Terence Crawford esse daring to jump 2 divisions meant nothing if he could not also bring the necessary rinku, pacing, and discipline. He did. He won the battle of firsts. First jab, first counter, first adjustment. He leaned into his strength rather than the other man's weaknesses. And he proved, once again, why many argue he belongs at the top of any pound-for-pound discussion. This was not a one-punch upset. It was a systemic solution to a complex problem. The future of Mexican boxing names to watch. The question of OS next for Mexican boxing is as old as the country's boxing tradition. It's also a trap when framed as Vureplace's Canelo Alvarez, as his stars are interchangeable. Still, every era finds new faces. Juan Manuel Marquez painted two in particular, Christian Quispa Medina and Rafael Divino Espinoza. Both are World Boxing Organization, WBO World Champions. Both fight with styles that resonate with Mexican fans. And both are in weight class, Bantamweight for Medina, featherweight for Espinoza, where compelling matchups abound. Quispa Medina is a new champion. There is Rafael Divino Espinoza, who forms what it takes to be the face of boxing, Marquez Said. He has good rivals in the featherweight division, and if he jumps to super featherweight, the implication is clear. Espinoza has a frame and style called carry up a division. Medina, as a bantamweight, can build a legacy in a hotbed of speed and skill. A closer look, Christian Quispa Medina. Medina's appeal is easy to see. He is a boxer puncher who understands range, works behind a lively jab, and commits to the body in classic Mexican fashion. At the bantamweight, historically one of the sport's most technical divisions, his balance of offense and defense stands out. He counters well, but he can also lead. He uses angles, not just straight lines, which makes him hard to time. If he keeps winning, unification fights could emerge quickly. Bantamweight is a division where belts move often and the best are expected to face each other. For SEO and for fans, Christian Quispa Medina and Guivia search were making in the months ahead. A closer look, Rafael Divino Espinoza. Espinoza, the WBO featherweight champion, carries the nickname Divino for a reason. He is a tall, rangy featherweight who leverage reach without fighting like a pure outside specialist. He can stalk, he can box, he doesn't waste punches. In a talent-rich featherweight landscape, where styles clash in Mexican versus war narratives write themselves, Espinoza looks like a fighter who can alone and unify the politics of the sport allow. Should he move to super featherweight as Marquez suggested, the slate of potential rivals only grows. Think about the kind of fights that pull casual fans in. High punch, high skill, body shot studying, jabs snapping, drama late. Espinoza can deliver that. The lineage matters. The reason this next phase of Mexican boxing conversation matters is lineage. Mexico's boxing heritage runs through Julio Cesar Chavez, Salvador Sanchez, Eric Morales, Marco Antonio Barrera, Juan Manuel Marquez himself, and in the modern era, Canelo Alvarez. The country's stars are not just winners, they define eras with styles and nights that live in memory. A new generation is already rising and Jesse Bam Rodriguez, Emmanuel Vaquero Navarrete, Isaac Pitt Cruz among them. Medina and Espinoza belong in the discussion. None of them replace Canelo, they extend the line in their own ways. What Canelo must change? Returning to the man at the center of this story, the path forward is both simple to describe and hard to walk. He needs to rediscover his job as an agenda setter, not a range finder. He needs to invest in the body earlier and in volume, not just with single sledgehammers. He needs entries built offense and half steps, not just upper body roll and shoots. He needs ring cutting that relies on feet and angles, not up, and he needs a corner that tells him, in minute 2 of round 3, that plan A is getting neutralized and this is how we get to plan B. Marquez's critique is also prescription. There are technical micro-adjustments that matter too. When Crawford switched up, the outside foot battle favored him. Canelo can adjust by stepping to his own right more consistently and stabbing the body with the lead right to close the door. He can jab to the chest to freeze a mover and then go upstairs. He can throw the right uppercut off the jab when opponents duck under the hook. He can feint the left hook to the body to draw the elbow and then arc the right over the top. These are not secrets. They are simple, fundamental sequences that require discipline through fatigue. Conditioning ties all of it together. If Alvarez wants to push a mover into mistakes late, he needs a gas tank that allows for sustained output, not just bursts. Business realities and a rematch question. The fight business rewards clarity. Fans will want to know whether a rematch clause exists, whether Crawford is willing to run it back at 168 pounds, and whether sanctioning bodies will sanction it again with belts at stake. There is also broadcast interest, gate revenue, and the unromantic match of pay-per-view. If a second fight happens, it will be sold on the story of adjustments. Can Canelo's combinations and corners solve the puzzle Marquez went unsolved in the first meeting? Or is Crawford's style a long-term riddle for a fighter whose best nights come when opponents stood more often and moved less?